A lot of the beauty of games comes in the fact that the player is directly involved in sending the message, which can warp the perception of the message that is being received by the party. If you think about the people who make games, we haven't hit that point in where a lot of different art forms do hit, where people realize that what we are creating isn't art. The audience has not caught up to what the producers are trying to do. And the people who make video games, they are also kind of grappling with it being kind of seen as an art form. Dude, some people just want to make Mario Bros. Or whatever. People are going to be playing
Hmm.
this. We're going to make so much money. Like the focus is on profits and a fun, playable end product rather than creating a piece of art. Representation in games, I think, is one of those things where it's tricky. I personally don't look to games and super feel represented, especially because of at least in a lot of mainstream games where you'll have these creators, as I said, who don't really understand games as, an art form, and they try to push it as through a studio filtered lens because, whatever makes the most money, am I right? Versus trying to tell something interesting. A lot of the time, where others feel represented by the creation of like a transgender character like Bridget or whatever. Um, I don't feel that level of connection. The only time I ever feel connected to characters like that are more often through independent works. And a lot of those times, that representation I feel is not because of, oh, that's a trans woman. They're just like me for real or whatever, but rather just seeing more human, nuanced takes on characters who are flawed, characters who are kind of just fucked up girls. A lot of my favorite characters are not necessarily ones I feel represented by, but ones I can just understand as incredibly deep and interesting characters who further the message of the games they are in. I'm not going to lie, I do think like pink washing or like queer baiting is a thing, especially by some companies, but also at the same time, these are created by, people who just want to make people. I was kind of like shitting on like studios before and like people who work on games, like, oh yeah, a lot of these people don't understand games as an art form, but a lot of these people also do. It's like the split within studios as well is kind of like where you'll have like artists and developers who are trying to create people who are like them. There's actually a post I saw earlier today where one of my friends was talking about you can create a gay character like that, but if you're not going to interact with their gayness, that's great. It's great that you created more gay characters, but they're inherently less interesting because they're not grappling with that. Even though it's nice to have characters who are gay and that's accepted and that's just one facet of their multifaceted personality. But if you're not going to interact with that, then for me as a gay person, what's the point? I could be talking with my friends on the computer or whatever who are gay and don't constantly grapple with that. But that relationship you're forming with the character, seeing your problems through the other, is what makes characters very special. So seeing Bridget's design slowly evolve to account for things trans women would be actually, conscious about when they're clothing is one of those things that really strikes me as a deeper character decision. Like their transness was created more intentionally versus, a character who was designed and then they're like, oh, let's make them trans as well on top of that. A lot of creators, a lot of indie creators specifically do this just because they want representation like that. They want to see, oh, I'm going to make this knight character. Let's make them a trans man. Might as well. They could be transgender men themselves, for instance, and they want to see themselves represented. That's great. More power to those people and people who feel represented by representations like that. But, it feels less special. It feels less personal. It feels less like the artist or whatever gets it. Just whenever
Hmm.
it's a knight with top scars versus, oh, it's a knight who grapples with that trans, and that
Hmm.
becomes a facet of their character arc. But, like, can't always be doom and gloom, so I get it. Another trans woman character, Laziva from Grand Blue Fantasy. Her whole character is her realizing that she's a trans woman and what that entails for a species that has such strong sexual dimorphism. She has a conversation with another trans character in the game who is Kylistoro. She says essentially like, hey, I have this power. I can turn you into someone who can be perceived more as a woman. And Ladiva goes, no, that's not something I want to do and not something I plan to do either. This is my body and this is who I am. This is like, I believe she goes and says, like, this is the present my parents gave to me, and I want to respect that. I can change myself to look more akin to you, but I'd lose what makes me me in the process. And this is my body, and that's just, it's who I am. It was like a 3-line exchange in a gotcha game. But it was just such a nuanced and deep take into transness, especially dysphoria and the expectations you might have for how a woman might look. But it's one of those things where you read that resonates with you in a certain way, where it's like, oh yeah, I may not have my ideal body, but it doesn't make me less me. It doesn't make me less of a woman or whatever, because I don't fit the typical societal standards of what being a woman might be like. Because, I'm me and I'm a woman, thus my body is a woman's body. And even if society might disagree, this is who I am. The level of body dysmorphia present in cisgender heterosexual people because of societal expectations of what a woman or a man should look like. Um, it's kind of hellish. Like you ever sit back and think about like, damn, we have a whole industry dedicated to like nose jobs and all boob jobs, diet culture, and like all this. It's like, wow, this is so pervasive and everywhere, and it's the expectation versus an option. To close it off, I guess. Fuck capitalism, go home.